Oh my god. Liquid Murder was written by Zossima. Picked this book up at the half-price books on the clearance rack, and I'm still kinda curious as to how it ended up at a bookstore in all honesty. Zossima has 4 works published, 3 of which are novels, and 1 of which is a short story and poetry compilation. All of Zossima's books were published in 2017, and from the looks of it, they're all self-published. Liquid Murder was the first to be published in March of 2017, with Oraclar Yahweh, An American Tapestry, and The Exegesis of Zossima both being published in March. Oddly enough, the latter 2 that I just mentioned were published within 3 weeks of each other. The final book in his repertoire so far is Love at the Lunacy Pub. Unlike the latter 3, Liquid Murder is completely out of print, so I'm pretty lucky to have found a copy of it when I did. I say I'm lucky because this thing is, without a doubt, the funniest fucking thing I have ever read, and the humor was not intentional. To steal from my own review on Amazon, this book is riddled with spelling errors, punctuation mistakes, grammar, and syntax errors. I knew what I was in for when on page 9 I read, "He had murder on his mind, and the thought of it churned his testicles." That's gonna be my thing from now on. Whenever a book pisses me off, I'm just gonna say it's churning my testicles. Now, before I go through and name off other hilariously awful issues with this book, I will say that maybe this is just a really bad translation. Maybe this was in another language and it was translated into English. I say this, but I really have no proof. There's very little about Zossima online. When looking on thrift books, it states that fewer than 1 copy of his short story compilation was sold in the last 6 months. Basically, he sells books like I get reviews on YouTube. On eBay, his book, Love at Lunacy Pub, is available on their Australian site, so maybe that's where he's from? I couldn't find a page on Facebook, but I know that the name Zossima is a female Greek name that translates to full of life, though it's also Spanish by some accounts. Though that doesn't really mean anything because English people, mostly Americans, like using foreign names for their kids without actually knowing what those names mean, so it doesn't really help worth a dick at the end of the day. Regardless, let's get right into everything wrong with this crapfest. As stated before, we have all of the spelling and syntax problems. Here's the thing, some of my favorite authors have had typos in their books. Usually if I run across 1 or even 2, I'll overlook it because we're all human. It happens. A lot of authors they write the book, they go through it themselves, they send it to an editor, then their agent looks at it, and sometimes just minor mistakes slip by, regardless of how many people look at it. But Liquid Murder, well, page 23, he uses the word socks twice, but misspells it the second time. I'm not kidding. He goes from SOCKS to SOX in the same sentence. There's a part where he's dreaming and uses the word damn, as in the Hoover Dam, like DAM, when he clearly meant it as a swear. He meant it as DAMN, but spelled it DAM. Then there's this, "Watch you doing here?" Watch, like WHACH. Watch. On page 87, okay, this one's good. There's this line. Listen closely here. "I had drive heaves that reduced by fat gut to a 6-pack. Gonna repeat that, okay? I had drive heaves that reduced by fat gut to a 6-pack. Page 93. They are out responsibility. Out. I think you meant hour. You get the point. Okay, I could go on forever about the problems in this book, at least with spelling. It's like a herpes-riddled dick of typos. Though the real meat are the actual sentence reads. And guys, seriously, if you have like a book club or you have friends that like to get together and read, get a copy of this book. Find Liquid Murder. You'll have to really dig for it because it's out of print, but get a copy, get some booze, you'll have a great time. You'll laugh your ass off. I know I did. So, to the sentences. But he had his fill of rose-colored religiosity years ago. Over it now. I was feeling no pain, but our home smelled of whiskey breath. Not good. By the way, whiskey was misspelled in that sentence. Mike struggled to cut even 3 slices of head cheese. He headed to the shower and thought of a dream he had whiling sleeping with Meatloaf. Check this out, some new stuff I wrote. It's not bad. This created a sense of betrayal by her and him. I knew right there that God don't give a damn about anybody. Everyone liked to talk, few enjoy listening. We learn to accept the cards life has dealt us, and then learn how to make better decisions when times get tough or we remember bad thing too often. No one is just sitting there on a bench like a mushroom. Then there's his attempt on page 91 to write someone with a southern accent, and he writes it exactly how it sounds. Mr. B, tell us, Owl, what you learned about coping today. Come on. Come on? Come on? That's how it's written. C-O-M-E, come on. O-W-N. Here's another one. Mobby, Mr. C would like to share his thoughts with the group. Oh, God. I do also want to try and convey the story to you guys, because there is actually a story in all of this. So there's this guy named Mike Crane, who is a useless, drunk, kind of a washed-up writer, isn't amounting to anything, won't get a job, and his first wife gets sick of his bullshit and kicks him out. He goes into rehab, ends up homeless, goes back to rehab, falls in love, accepts God, and lives happily ever after. I understand what Zossima was trying to do. He's trying to write a story about how alcohol can destroy a man and destroy his marriage. I can definitely tell he's coming from kind of a biographical place, if that makes sense. Like, I can tell that as a person, this is something he has experience with. It's just not done very well. And there are some logical issues in the story. My favorite one is how Mike, his first wife, browbeats him enough he finally goes out to try and get a job. And he goes to apply at a Salvation Army, and they turn him away because he's overqualified. Like I said, he's applying at a Salvation Army at a thrift store. And because he has a college degree, he's too overqualified and they don't want to hire him. I can guarantee there's some dude with a master's degree in physics working at a Burger King somewhere. Overqualified? Really? Another issue is this book constantly jumps from first to third person. I think the first person is the actual narration, and the third is when Mike's working on his stories within the novel, but it isn't made clear. Dialogue quotes are used sparingly, so that sometimes when people talk, it's just mushed into the narration with no indication of who's talking, no indentation when people talk. It isn't a matter of like someone's thinking to themselves and it's smashed in to the narration. It's like sometimes everything's just one giant wall of text ready to bowl you over and beat your ass. I've seen third graders with better grasp of dialogue. I'm not kidding. The best part of all of this is, aside from the spelling and grammatical errors, the shit story, and the poor characterization, Zossima quotes himself in the book. Let me explain. Throughout the end half, he uses quotes from Anon, or Anonymous. Okay? Then he pulls a line from the beginning of Liquid Murder and transplants it as a chapter break at the end, towards the end. He quotes himself, and it's not even from a different book, it's from the same book. Like, this is a man who thinks that what he says is so intelligent and so groundbreaking that he has to, like, quote himself in his own works. The actual line is, people see what they want to see, hear what they want to hear, and embrace what they need to embrace. All of life is a theater. And I typed the other two anonymous quotes into Google to see what came up, and I found nothing. I bet you anything he made them up too and just put anonymous so he wouldn't look like a complete narcissist. Guys, this is without a doubt the worst book I have read so far in terms of like composition, structure, and overall writing quality. But it's given me such a great laugh. I had so much fun reading it. I can't recommend it enough. I really can't. But I also can't go easy on it just because I laughed my ass off. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Liquid Murder, of course, a 0.